The Zarkthon Empire was ancient, its reign stretching across the galaxy for thousands of years. Every species it had encountered was either crushed or brought into submission. Their warships, equipped with advanced technology and devastating weapons, made them nearly invincible. For centuries, the Empire ruled without any real challenge. The galaxy feared them. No species dared to oppose their might. Until now. In the distant reaches of space, on the edge of Zarkthon-controlled territory, a new species was emerging. Humans. The humans had started to expand rapidly, colonizing new worlds at an astonishing pace. Their ships were unlike anything the Zarkthons had seen before, nimble, efficient, and surprisingly resourceful. At first, the Zarkthons paid little attention. Another insignificant species, they thought. Another race that would fall under their rule, like so many before. But then, something strange happened. The humans, rather than surrendering like other species, started to fight back. They didn't have the grand fleets of the Zarkthons or the advanced weapons, but they had something that the Zarkthons didn't: determination. And it was this very determination that sparked the first encounter. It began with a message, a simple, direct message. The Zarkthons intercepted it from a human colony on the outer rim. It was short, almost casual in tone. It said, "We are humanity. We don't want trouble, but we won't back down. If you come, we will fight. We warn you now. Turn back." The Zarkthons laughed. The threat from a species so young and untested, it was absurd. No one had ever dared to challenge the Empire in such a way. Surely, this was nothing more than a miscalculation, a mistake made by a species too naive to understand the power of the Zarkthon fleet. Ignoring the warning, the Empire sent a single dreadnought to teach these humans a lesson. A ship capable of wiping out entire planets if necessary. Its weapons were among the most advanced in the galaxy, and its defenses were nearly impenetrable. The Zarkthons knew they would crush this human rebellion in no time. As the dreadnought approached the human colony of Vesta Prime, its commander, General Kor, surveyed the planet from his command bridge. The colony appeared peaceful, with thriving cities and bustling trade routes. There was nothing special about this world, nothing that suggested it could pose a threat to the mighty Empire. General Kor expected the humans to surrender without a fight, just like all the others. But then, something unexpected happened. Just as the Zarkthon ship entered orbit, the humans sent another message. It was a video transmission, this time, with a human in a uniform standing in front of a plain backdrop. His voice was calm, but his words were chilling. "You didn't listen to our first warning. Now you will pay the price. If you attack, we will retaliate with everything we have. We aren't the species you think we are. You've underestimated us. This is your final chance. Leave now, and we will spare you. Stay, and we will make you regret this decision." The Zarkthon officer laughed again, dismissing the message as an empty threat. General Kor gave the order to launch an orbital bombardment on the human cities below. This was not an act of war. It was a lesson, a reminder that no one stood against the Empire for long. Soon, the humans would understand their place in the galaxy. But as the first bombardment was unleashed, something happened that none of the Zarkthons had predicted. The human defenses were not only present, they were advanced. Their shields absorbed the blasts without so much as a crack, and their weapons fired back with unrelenting force. In a matter of moments, the Zarkthon dreadnought found itself under attack, with its own shields struggling to keep up. The Empire's superior technology was being overwhelmed by the humans' quick thinking and ingenuity. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only defended themselves, but they had managed to cripple the dreadnought's power systems. The Zarkthon ship, once unstoppable, was now floating in space, disabled and helpless. Within the wreckage of the Zarkthon dreadnought, the surviving crew members scrambled for safety, but before they could escape, another message was sent from the human colony. "This is just the beginning. We warned you to leave. You didn't listen. Now you will pay the consequences." The message was clear. Humanity was not going to back down. The Zarkthons, for the first time in centuries, found themselves facing a species that was willing to fight back. This was not a war they had expected. The humans had shown them something they had never seen before: resilience, courage, and a will to survive. And now, the galaxy would be watching, waiting to see what would happen next. The Zarkthons had made a mistake, and they were about to pay the price. Humanity had warned them, but the Empire hadn't listened. The shockwave of the Zarkthon defeat spread quickly across the galaxy. News of the Zarkthon dreadnought being crippled by a species as young and unknown as humanity sent ripples of disbelief throughout the Empire. General Kor, the commander of the ship that had been disabled, had returned to the capital, humiliated. He was questioned by the Emperor's advisors, who struggled to comprehend how such an event could happen. Emperor Dalfur, the ruler of the Zarkthon Empire, sat silently on his throne, deep in thought. He had ruled for centuries, crushing one rebellion after another, bringing countless civilizations to their knees. The Zarkthon Empire was built on power, strength, and fear, and yet these humans had defied them. Not only had they survived an attack, but they had fought back with remarkable precision and advanced technology. This was no ordinary species. The humans were a puzzle that the Emperor needed to solve. After days of deliberation, the Emperor finally decided. He would send a fleet to crush the human threat. This would be no minor attack. This would be a full-scale operation, a demonstration of the Empire's power. General Kor would lead the fleet, and this time, there would be no mercy. Back on Earth, humanity was preparing for the worst. The defeat of the Zarkthon dreadnought was a victory, yes, but everyone knew the Empire would retaliate. Humanity had been given a brief moment of triumph, but the real fight was only just beginning. The United Earth Council, along with military leaders from across human colonies, held a meeting to discuss their next steps. Admiral Miriam Lark, one of humanity's most respected military leaders, stood before the council. She was a calm and strategic thinker, known for her quick thinking in battle. She had spent her life studying the Zarkthon Empire, and now she was about to face them on the battlefield. "The Zarkthons will not let this go," Admiral Lark said, her voice steady. "We've just shown them that we are not to be underestimated, but now they'll come at us with everything they have. We need to be ready." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that the human colonies were no match for the full might of the Zarkthon fleet. The Empire had warships that could obliterate entire planets, and their weapons were far beyond what humans had in their arsenal. But Admiral Lark had a plan. "We won't win by brute force," she continued. "But we don't need to. We have something the Zarkthons don't have: adaptability. We can think on our feet. We can use their own arrogance against them." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. Some were still unsure if humanity could truly stand up to the Empire. But Admiral Lark was convinced. She knew that their victory wasn't about matching the Zarkthons blow for blow. It was about outsmarting them. "Humanity has one key advantage," she said, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We're survivors. We fight when there's no hope left. We innovate when there's no way forward. And we never give up." The room filled with murmurs of agreement. Lark was right. Humanity might not have the size or strength of the Zarkthon Empire, but they had something else: the will to stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. A few days later, the Zarkthon fleet arrived at Vesta Prime, just as the humans had predicted. The fleet was massive, far larger than the single dreadnought that had been sent earlier. Hundreds of warships filled the skies, their dark, imposing shapes blocking out the stars. Each ship was equipped with weapons capable of reducing entire cities to rubble. The Zarkthons had come to end this fight once and for all. Humanity was ready. The planet's surface was dotted with hidden defenses, massive energy shields, hidden railgun stations, and drones capable of swarming like a cloud of angry bees. The human fleets had been waiting, their ships dispersed across the system, ready to strike at the Zarkthon forces when they arrived. Admiral Lark had learned from the first encounter with the Zarkthons. In that battle, they had shown humanity's strength, but now they needed to show them the full extent of their ingenuity. This wasn't just about defense. This was about proving that humanity could outthink the Empire at every turn. The first Zarkthon ships fired, unleashing their devastating weapons on the human defenses. But instead of crumbling, the human shields absorbed the blasts with ease. The Zarkthon fleet had expected to tear through the human defenses, but the shields held strong. The Empire's ships fired again, but this time, humanity was ready. In a series of well-coordinated strikes, human warships appeared from hidden positions, launching surprise attacks on the Zarkthon fleet. The Zarkthons had underestimated the humans' ability to fight back, and now they were paying the price. Their ships were caught off guard, unable to react quickly enough. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Zarkthons were not used to this kind of fight. They were used to overwhelming force, to crushing their enemies in direct combat. But humanity was not fighting that way. They were attacking from unexpected angles, using the environment to their advantage, and taking full advantage of the Zarkthon fleet's lack of flexibility. For the first time, the Zarkthons found themselves struggling. The battle wasn't going according to plan, and they had only just begun to realize the full extent of what they were up against. Humanity had warned them, but now the Empire would have to face the consequences. The Zarkthon Empire was rattled. They had never expected a species so young to pose such a threat. General Kor, despite his earlier failure, had returned to the capital, his pride wounded but his determination unshaken. He was summoned before the Emperor. It was time for the Empire to make its move, an overwhelming response that would erase humanity from existence. In the grand throne room of the Zarkthon capital, Emperor Dalthor sat on his obsidian throne, his sharp eyes narrowing as he watched his general approach. The Empire had been struck in a way no one had anticipated. The humans had not only survived the first encounter, they had inflicted real damage. General Kor's report was damning, but the Emperor's voice was cold and resolute. They must be eradicated. No species challenges the might of the Empire and survives. The Emperor's decision was final. A fleet would be assembled, the most powerful the Empire had ever seen. Hundreds of warships, carriers, and superweapons would descend upon humanity's home systems. No mercy, no retreat. The Zarkthons had underestimated the humans once before, but this time they would strike with all their might. In a matter of days, the Empire's fleet was ready. It was a massive armada, a force so powerful that entire star systems would fall under its shadow. General Kor was once again appointed to lead the invasion. The human colonies would learn the true meaning of empire. Back on Earth, Admiral Miriam Lark had been preparing for the worst. The battle against the first Zarkthon fleet had been a victory, but it had been just a skirmish. Humanity's real test was now at hand. The Zarkthons were sending a full invasion force, a fleet so large that no one could be certain of the outcome. As Earth's military commanders gathered in the war room, tension filled the air. They knew what was coming, but they also knew that humanity's survival depended on how they responded. The enemy was massive. The human fleet, though strong, was smaller and less advanced. The Zarkthon weapons were capable of destroying planets, while humanity's best technology was still catching up. Admiral Lark stood at the front of the room, her face set in determination. "We've proven that we can hold our own," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "But now we need to think differently. We don't have the numbers, and we don't have the firepower to match them. We need to use what makes us human, our adaptability, our creativity, and our ability to think on our feet." The council members exchanged glances. There was no arguing with Admiral Lark's words. They all knew that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to adapt. But that wouldn't be enough if they couldn't outsmart the Empire. "We've been given a gift," Admiral Lark continued. "The Zarkthons are predictable. They're powerful, yes, but they rely too much on brute force. We can use that against them. We've studied their tactics. We know how they think, And we have something they don't: the ability to improvise when it matters most. Admiral Lark's plan was simple. The human fleet would need to use guerrilla tactics, hit and run, strike fast, and disappear before the Zarkthons could retaliate. They couldn't afford a prolonged battle. They had to strike when the Empire was vulnerable, and then vanish into the darkness of space before the Zarkthons could react. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was their only option. As the first Zarkthon ships entered human space, the battle began. The humans struck swiftly, using their smaller, more maneuverable ships to harass the larger, slower Zarkthon vessels. They used every advantage they had: cloaking devices, decoys, and advanced AI that could predict the enemy's movements. Every time the Zarkthons launched a strike, the humans were already gone, appearing in a new location moments later. At first, the Zarkthon fleet was confused. They had expected the humans to cower, to run in fear, but instead, they were fighting back with a relentless fury. The Zarkthons retaliated, launching wave after wave of energy blasts, but the humans always seemed one step ahead. For every ship the Zarkthons destroyed, two more appeared in its place. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They attacked from the shadows, and every time they struck, the Zarkthons lost more ships. General Kor's frustration grew with each passing hour. The humans were not fighting like a traditional enemy. They weren't organized in the way the Empire expected. They didn't fight in direct engagements. Instead, they seemed to be everywhere at once, slipping past their defenses and hitting from angles the Zarkthons hadn't considered. As the battle continued, the Empire's fleet began to falter. It was becoming clear that the humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. They were fighting with a purpose that the Zarkthons couldn't understand. The Empire's superior numbers and firepower were not enough to overwhelm the humans. They were learning, adapting, and responding in ways that left the Zarkthons scrambling. The humans weren't just holding their own. They were forcing the Zarkthons to question everything they knew about warfare. This wasn't a war of brute strength. This was a war of strategy, of wit, and of survival. And for the first time in centuries, the Zarkthon Empire found itself on the back foot. It was clear now that the Empire had underestimated humanity in ways they couldn't undo. The humans weren't just a threat. They were a new force in the galaxy, one that could not be ignored. The Emperor had made a mistake, and the cost of that mistake was becoming more evident with every passing moment. Humanity had warned them. And now, the Zarkthons would learn the hard way. The Zarkthon Empire was beginning to realize the true scope of their mistake. Their fleet, once seen as an unstoppable force, was now being pushed to its limits by humanity's unpredictable tactics. General Kor had been humiliated once before, but this time, the humiliation was more profound. He had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to think on their feet, and most of all, to fight back. And now, his fleet was paying the price. For the past few days, the battle had been a constant game of cat and mouse. The humans were striking and retreating, never staying in one place long enough for the Zarkthons to land a decisive blow. It was as if the human fleet could vanish into thin air, only to reappear at the most unexpected moments. Each time the Zarkthons thought they had gained an advantage, the humans would slip away, leaving them to chase ghosts. The Zarkthons had launched several offensives, hoping to break the humans' defenses. But every time they attacked, the humans adapted. They had learned to predict the Zarkthon fleet's movements, exploiting every weakness and catching them off guard. The Empire's enormous ships were sluggish compared to the humans' smaller, more nimble vessels. Each time the Zarkthons deployed their heavy firepower, the humans countered with precision strikes, hitting weak spots and disabling key systems. General Kor was furious. He had spent his entire life commanding fleets far larger and more powerful than any force the humans could muster. He had crushed rebellions across the galaxy. But this was different. The humans were not only defending, they were making the Empire bleed. As the battle raged on, The human ships continued to outmaneuver the Zarkthons. Their tactics were unconventional but effective. They used the vastness of space to their advantage, hiding in asteroid fields and using gravitational anomalies to avoid detection. The human fleet seemed to materialize from nowhere, launching surprise attacks on the Zarkthon warships and then vanishing before a counterattack could even be launched. On the human side, Admiral Lark was fully aware that they couldn't keep up this strategy forever. The Zarkthons were powerful, and their fleet was massive. But what humanity lacked in numbers and firepower, they made up for in ingenuity. Every move they made was carefully planned, and every battle was a chance to learn more about their enemy. The humans were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to outsmart the Empire, and in the process, prove that they were not just a small, insignificant species. Humanity had learned one crucial thing during this fight. They didn't need to defeat the Zarkthons in a head-to-head battle. They didn't need to match their enemy's firepower. Instead, they could chip away at the Empire's strength, using their superior intelligence and adaptability to turn the tide. The key was not to win by brute force, but to wear the Zarkthons down, one battle at a time. Admiral Lark's plan was starting to work. The Zarkthon fleet, though massive, was not invincible. They were starting to make mistakes, and those mistakes were costing them. The Zarkthons, used to fighting enemies that cowered before them, were struggling to cope with humanity's unconventional tactics. They had never faced an enemy that fought so unpredictably. And now, they were beginning to feel the weight of their own arrogance. As the battle entered its third day, a new phase of the conflict began. The Zarkthons, growing more desperate, sent in their elite forces, an even more powerful fleet, equipped with the Empire's latest technology. These ships were faster, stronger, and better armed than anything the humans had faced so far. General Kor was confident that this would be the turning point. The humans had proven to be a nuisance, but now, with the full force of the Empire bearing down on them, their resistance would crumble. But the humans were ready. They had anticipated this move. Using their knowledge of the Zarkthon fleet's tactics, they set a trap. They lured the elite Zarkthon ships into a narrow corridor of space, where the Zarkthon's superior firepower was no longer an advantage. The humans attacked from multiple angles, hitting vulnerable points and targeting weak spots with pinpoint precision. The Zarkthons were unprepared for the level of coordination the humans displayed. The Empire's elite forces, expecting an easy victory, found themselves caught in a deadly ambush. The humans hit them with everything they had: smart bombs, electromagnetic pulses, and disabling energy bursts that knocked out key systems on several Zarkthon ships. The Zarkthons, despite their advanced technology, were forced to retreat, unable to hold their ground against the human fleet's surprise attack. For the first time in the conflict, the Zarkthons were on the defensive. Their fleet, once an overwhelming force, was now taking heavy losses. General Kor, furious and confused, tried to regroup his forces, but it was clear that humanity had caught them off guard. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to win. On Earth, Admiral Lark watched the battle unfold from her command center. The Zarkthons were retreating, but this was not the time for celebration. The humans had scored a victory, yes, but the war was far from over. The Zarkthon fleet would be back, and they would be more determined than ever to crush the human resistance. But for now, humanity had proven something incredible. They could fight and win against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The Zarkthons had learned the hard way that humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity had warned them, and now, the Zarkthons would know just how high a price they would pay for underestimating the human spirit. The humans had won a significant victory, but the battle was far from over. The Zarkthon Empire had suffered a major setback, but it was not a force to be taken lightly. Despite their recent losses, the Zarkthons were far from defeated. The Empire was vast, and its military might had yet to be fully unleashed. General Kor, still reeling from the unexpected defeat, was recalled to the Zarkthon capital. The Emperor's anger had been swift and fierce, but there was no time for blame. The failure had been recognized, but now, the Empire's leaders were focused on one goal: revenge. They could not allow this minor setback to undermine their dominance over the galaxy. The Zarkthon fleet was reassembled, but this time, the strategy was different. The Emperor had ordered a new wave of ships to be dispatched, an even more devastating force than before. The humans would not be given the chance to regroup. This time, they would feel the full wrath of the Empire. Admiral Lark and her team knew that they had not seen the last of the Zarkthons. The victory over the elite fleet had been a surprise, but the war was far from won. They needed to stay vigilant, constantly adapting to the Empire's every move. The humans had proven they could hold their ground, but the Zarkthons were relentless. They would not give up easily. On Earth, the tension was palpable. The victory over the Zarkthon fleet had brought hope, but that hope was tempered by the knowledge that the Empire's retaliation was coming. Humanity had no choice but to prepare for the inevitable second wave. "We have to be ready," Admiral Lark said to her command staff as they gathered in the war room. "The Zarkthons will come back stronger. We need to be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than ever." The human fleet had grown as more colonies joined the fight. Every new ship, every new soldier was another piece in the puzzle. Humanity had learned how to fight the Zarkthons, and now they would apply that knowledge in the next phase of the war. As the Zarkthon fleet arrived in human space, the tension reached its peak. The Zarkthons had not come to negotiate or show mercy. Their fleet was massive, their weapons capable of decimating entire colonies. But this time, Admiral Lark was ready. The human fleet, now more experienced and better coordinated, positioned itself strategically, using the natural terrain of nearby asteroid fields and gas giants to their advantage. They were no longer the underdogs, outmatched by the Zarkthons' overwhelming force. Humanity had learned from their previous victories, and they knew that they had to keep the Empire guessing. The Zarkthons moved in with their full might. Their massive warships lined up in formation, their weapons charging with energy, ready to strike. General Kor was at the helm, confident that this time there would be no mistakes. They would crush the humans once and for all. But as the battle began, it quickly became clear that the Zarkthons were facing something entirely different. The humans were no longer just running and hiding. They were fighting with precision, attacking from all angles, and using every tool at their disposal. The Zarkthons had underestimated them before, but this time, their arrogance would be their downfall. Human ships darted in and out of the enemy formation, hitting vulnerable points with pinpoint accuracy. The Zarkthons responded with powerful energy blasts, but the humans were already gone, moving to a new position before the attack could land. The humans were not fighting a direct battle. They were using the Empire's own weight against them. As the battle raged on, the Zarkthons found themselves in a position they had never been in before. They were losing. Their ships were damaged, their forces scattered, and their once unstoppable momentum was faltering. General Kor watched in disbelief as the human fleet struck again and again, never allowing the Zarkthons a chance to retaliate. Despite the overwhelming size of their fleet, the Zarkthons were unable to adapt as quickly as humanity had. Their tactics were based on brute force, but the humans had learned to strike at weaknesses and retreat before they could be countered. The Zarkthons, despite their superior technology, were unable to match the human strategy. On the human side, Admiral Lark coordinated the battle with cold precision. She knew that this was their chance to tip the scales in their favor. The Zarkthon fleet, though powerful, was not invincible. And as the humans attacked in waves, hitting the Zarkthons at their weakest points, the tide of battle began to shift. Hours into the conflict, the Zarkthons began to retreat. Their massive warships, once the epitome of military might, were now battered and broken. The human fleet, though smaller, had fought with ingenuity and determination, making up for what they lacked in raw firepower with superior strategy. It was a stunning turn of events. The Zarkthons, who had once ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, were now facing a force they could not conquer. Humanity had proven that they were not just a temporary annoyance. They were a threat that could not be ignored. General Kor, now in full retreat, had no choice but to call for reinforcements. The Zarkthon Empire had lost yet another battle, but the war was far from over. The humans had fought back with everything they had, but the Empire would not give up easily. It would take everything humanity had to withstand the full force of the Empire's wrath. As the dust settled, the humans celebrated their hard-fought victory, but they knew better than to rest. The Zarkthons would return, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The war was still far from over, but with each battle, humanity was proving that it could stand up to the might of the Zarkthon Empire. Humanity had warned them, and now, the Zarkthons would face the reality that they had underestimated the power of a species that would never back down. The Zarkthon Empire had underestimated humanity once again. Despite their overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, they had failed to crush the human resistance. The Empire's fleets had been humiliated, and General Kor's position was growing more precarious by the day. But the Empire, though wounded, was far from broken. The Zarkthons had retreated, regrouped, and returned to their homeworld, the heart of their vast empire. The capital, a sprawling city planet that gleamed like a jewel in the dark expanse of space, was a symbol of the Empire's unmatched power. From here, the Emperor had ruled for centuries, conquering species and expanding their territory without mercy. Now, with the humans proving to be more of a challenge than anticipated, the Emperor's patience was running thin. Emperor Dalthor sat upon his obsidian throne, his cold, calculating eyes studying the reports from the front lines. The battle for human space had not gone according to plan, and the losses were beginning to mount. The Zarkthon military had suffered defeats that would have shattered lesser empires, but Dalthor's resolve was ironclad. He had ruled for centuries by adapting and evolving, and he would do so again. "We will break them," the Emperor muttered, his voice echoing through the throne room. "No species has ever defied the Zarkthon Empire. No one ever will." General Kor, who had returned to the capital, stood before the Emperor. He had failed in his previous missions, but now he was tasked with leading the final push into human space. The Emperor had lost faith in many of his generals, but Kor's experience and tenacity were unquestionable. "This time, we will crush them, Your Excellency," Kor said, his voice unwavering despite his past failures. "We will strike at their core and show them the full power of the Empire. They will break beneath the weight of our might." Emperor Dalthor nodded, a cold smile creeping across his face. "Yes, we will teach these humans the cost of defiance." Back on Earth, Admiral Lark and her command staff were preparing for the next phase of the war. The Zarkthons had retreated, but everyone knew that the Empire would not allow their losses to go unanswered. The humans had been given a brief respite, but that would soon change. Admiral Lark gathered her officers in the war room. The gravity of their situation was evident. The Zarkthons were not a species that gave up easily. Their retreat was a tactical move, nothing more. Humanity's victory had only enraged them, and now they were coming back stronger than ever. "We've bought ourselves some time," Admiral Lark said, her voice calm but firm. "But we can't let our guard down. The Zarkthons will return with everything they've got. We need to be prepared." The humans had learned a great deal about the Zarkthon tactics, and they knew that the Empire would come back with more advanced strategies. But they also knew something the Zarkthons did not. They knew how to adapt. The humans had always been able to think outside the box, and now that creativity would be their greatest weapon. "We can't match their fleet in size or firepower," Admiral Lark continued. "But we don't have to. We have something they don't. A determination to survive. They've underestimated us every step of the way. That's how we'll win." The room was filled with nods of agreement. The humans knew that they could not defeat the Zarkthons through sheer strength. They had to outsmart them, just as they had done before. The key was to strike when the Empire least expected it, to use their own arrogance against them. Meanwhile, General Kor was preparing his final assault. The Zarkthons were gathering the most powerful warships the Empire had ever created, massive dreadnoughts equipped with weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets. This would be their ultimate strike against humanity. The humans had proven difficult to defeat, but Kor was certain that with these new weapons, the Empire would finally crush them. "We will destroy their defenses," Kor said to his fleet commanders. "Once we do that, we will take their homeworld. And then they will have no choice but to surrender. The Empire will reign supreme once more." Kor's plan was simple: to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth and crush humanity once and for all. But what he did not know was that the humans had been preparing for this exact moment. The battle was set to unfold in the depths of space, near a region known as the Fringe. It was a strategic location, one that both sides knew could determine the fate of the war. The Zarkthon fleet, led by General Kor, was about to launch its invasion. They were confident, perhaps too confident. The humans, on the other hand, had been preparing their own secret weapon, a fleet of ships designed specifically to counter the Zarkthon dreadnoughts. Admiral Lark's fleet was smaller, but it was faster and more flexible. The humans had learned from their previous victories and knew how to strike with precision. They would not meet the Zarkthons head-on. Instead, they would use their speed and knowledge of the enemy to launch an attack that the Empire could never anticipate. As the Zarkthon fleet entered the Fringe, they were met with an unexpected surprise. The humans had set up a series of traps, hiding their ships in asteroid fields, using the gravity wells of nearby planets to mask their movements, and using electromagnetic pulses to disable key Zarkthon systems. The Zarkthons, so used to overwhelming their enemies, were caught off guard. The first wave of Zarkthon ships was decimated before they even had a chance to retaliate. The humans hit fast and hard, exploiting every weakness in the Zarkthon armor and striking at the heart of their fleet. The Zarkthons, stunned by the unexpected resistance, scrambled to regroup. In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Lark's voice rang out over the comms. "Now's our chance. Keep the pressure on. We can't let them recover." The battle raged on, and the humans fought with everything they had. They had the advantage now, but they knew the Zarkthons would not give up easily. The war was far from over, and the Zarkthons were preparing for their final, most devastating strike. Humanity had warned them before, but now the Zarkthons would see that underestimating humanity's spirit was a mistake they would not survive. The war had reached its climax. The Zarkthon Empire, once confident in its ability to crush humanity, was now on the brink of defeat. After months of fierce battles, countless setbacks, and strategic losses, the Empire's forces were beginning to unravel. General Kor, despite his unwavering resolve, was beginning to realize the truth. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. In the heart of the Empire's command center, Emperor Dalthor sat in silence, staring at the holographic displays of the battle. His fingers drummed nervously on the armrest of his throne. The Zarkthon fleet was in disarray, their ships scattered and vulnerable. This had been the last gamble, a final attempt to crush the humans and restore the Empire's dominance. But the humans had fought back with a tenacity that Dalthor had never anticipated. "How is this possible?" the Emperor muttered under his breath. "We are the most powerful empire in the galaxy." General Kor, standing at attention before the Emperor, hesitated. "Your Excellency, the humans, they've adapted. Their tactics are unpredictable. We thought we had them cornered, but they've turned our own strength against us. We've lost too many ships." Dalthor's eyes narrowed, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "And what of the final assault? Have they been driven back yet?" Kor looked grim. "The humans have proven more resilient than expected. Our final wave of dreadnoughts is in position, but the humans have set a trap. We are walking into their kill zone." The Emperor's fury erupted. "We cannot lose this war, Kor. If we do, our empire will crumble. Do not fail me again." Kor nodded, his mind racing. He had always been a man of action, but now the odds seemed stacked against him. The humans had proven time and time again that they could adapt, evolve, and fight in ways that the Zarkthons had never anticipated. The war had taken its toll on both sides, but the humans had shown a strength that defied belief. Meanwhile, Admiral Lark watched from her flagship as the battle unfolded in real time. The Zarkthons had launched their final assault, bringing their most powerful warships to bear. But the humans were ready. The strategies that had once made the Zarkthons feel invincible were now working against them. The human fleet was smaller, but its unity, ingenuity, and relentless spirit had made all the difference. "This is it," Admiral Lark said, her voice calm but determined. "We end this today." The humans had spent weeks preparing for this final confrontation. Every ship, every soldier, every strategy had been crafted with the goal of taking down the Zarkthon fleet once and for all. The Zarkthons were expecting a direct confrontation, but the humans were not playing by their rules anymore. Instead of a head-on assault, the human fleet used the element of surprise, launching a series of calculated strikes at the heart of the Zarkthon formation. As the first Zarkthon dreadnoughts advanced, the humans hit them with everything they had. Their ships moved with lightning speed, darting between asteroid fields and using gravitational anomalies to mask their movements. The Zarkthons, despite their superior firepower, were caught off guard. The humans had learned how to fight with precision, using tactics that the Empire had never seen before. The battle quickly turned into a war of attrition. The Zarkthons tried to regroup, but the humans kept them on the defensive, hitting key targets and disabling their ships one by one. It was not a battle of raw strength, but a battle of wits. The humans had shown that they could outthink the Zarkthons, and now they were proving it once more. On the Zarkthon flagship, General Kor's frustration grew. His fleet was falling apart, and there was little he could do to stop it. He had underestimated the humans at every turn, and now they were paying the price. He had no choice but to call for reinforcements, but even as he did, he knew it was too late. The humans had already secured their victory. "We can't keep up with them," Kor admitted, his voice heavy with defeat. "The humans have beaten us." Emperor Dalthor stood up from his throne, his eyes burning with fury. "Then we will fight until the last. The Empire will not fall to these insects." But even as the Emperor spoke, he knew that the tides of war had turned irreversibly. The humans had proved that they were more than capable of defending themselves. They had warned the Zarkthons, and now the Empire would learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. The battle raged on, but the Zarkthons were running out of options. The human fleet, though smaller, had worn down their forces through sheer persistence. The Zarkthons had spent too much time focusing on brute force and had underestimated the importance of strategy and adaptability. Now, the human advantage was undeniable. Admiral Lark stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the last of the Zarkthon dreadnoughts fell. Her heart raced with a mix of triumph and disbelief. After all the battles, all the sacrifices, humanity had finally done it. They had defeated the mighty Zarkthon Empire. "This is our victory," Admiral Lark said quietly. "We've shown them that we will never be broken. Humanity is here to stay." As the last Zarkthon warship was destroyed, the humans erupted in cheers. It was a hard-fought victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The Zarkthons had been humbled, and the galaxy would never be the same again. On Earth, celebrations broke out as the news spread. The humans had faced a galactic empire that had crushed countless civilizations, and yet they had held their ground and emerged victorious. The Zarkthons had learned a harsh lesson, that humanity would never be silenced. The war was over, and humanity had proven that, no matter how powerful the enemy, they could not be defeated. The Zarkthons had been warned, but it had taken the full might of the Empire to realize the truth. Humanity was here, and they would not be ignored. The Zarkthons had underestimated them, And that was their greatest mistake.